Today on The Dead Life, I'll be joined by Mary Albanese, animal communicator. She's going to share with us her encounters with animals and how she knew this was her calling. Mary also has an upcoming workshop that she's going to tell us about for those of you who want to learn how to psychically connect with animals. If you want to leave me a message that might be shared on a future episode of The Dead Life in my Love Me, Love Me Not segment, or you have a question about a psychic experience you've had, leave it at 802-DEAD-811. That's 802-332-3811. You can follow me on Instagram at Medium Allison, on my Facebook fan page, and you can binge on my YouTube videos to watch readings, including episodes of The Dead Life. If you have abilities of your own and are looking to expand them and connect with other gifted people, go to deaduniversity.com. Hey, Mary, welcome back.
Thank you for having me back again, Allison.
You're a pleasure, so that's no problem whatsoever. So today we're going to talk all things animal communication. I'm really excited about this. I know there's a lot of people out there that are wondering, how are they to know if they're able to talk to animals? Is it a matter of trusting the information they sense when focusing on animals? How did you know?
Well, initially, I didn't. I took some workshops in energy work and took workshops in animal communication. Actually, I completed a formal program. It took me about 18 months.
What
And I
drew you to
worked
that,
with
though?
people
What
like
made
me. I've,
what made you
I've
want to
always
do that?
loved
Was it
animals, and I
okay?
thought, honestly, once I retired from teaching, that I would do something connected with animals, maybe as a vet tech or something like that. But I never thought of animal communication as even a possibility until I
Right.
started to get into energy work, which sort of reopened my personal intuitive conduit because we're all intuitive. It's just a question of working with it. It's like any other muscle. And
Right.
so I started with that and trained formally for about 18 months and worked with like-minded people. And that was how I ended up getting into this. But really, this wasn't on my radar when I first started down this path. I didn't even
Did
realize that we could do this.
did you
But
find that some of the animal communicators you vibed with more than others, that people who were teaching you? Did you, or was it just all very kumbaya and everybody's great?
no, no. I mean, definitely I vibed more with certain people than others, and I'm still close with them. There are people that don't hesitate to refer to or go to myself with my own dog, because
I think
sometimes,
it's
he doesn't like
I
to
think
talk
it's
to
important.
mommy.
I think it's important for empaths to understand that because we read energy, it's okay not to vibe with other empaths. I mean, we're all different variations of energy, and some people you're just going to be on exactly the same page, and other people will feel, I don't know, off to you where you
Exactly.
don't. But then they draw the clients that are more like energy to their own, and those aren't the ones you'd vibe with anyway. So I think it works out because
It does.
each of our personality draws a different personality in our clients.
We do. We draw the right
Yeah,
people to us.
I agree completely. Are all animals capable of communicating with us? Because gorillas seem particularly good at it, judging from anthropologist Diane Fossey's life story, which was adapted to the big screen in the movie Gorillas in the Mist, which I found very moving. I find gorillas to be particularly almost human in a way where they remember the person. I know on Instagram there was a video going around that I absolutely bawled watching. But this man raised a baby gorilla that he found whose, I think, mother had been killed. But he raised the gorilla until it was an adult and had to be released. But he was sort of the father to it. And he went back 5 years later and was going down the river in a boat. And he was calling the name of the gorilla. And this full size gorilla came out of the jungle area with all of his wives and recognized the man's voice. And it shows video of them hugging and how much the gorilla loved him and missed him. And it kept following him when he got back on the boat to leave back to the camp because he wanted to be near him still. The gorilla did. And it was so beautiful. So I think animals, people don't really understand how soulful they are. And the people that do understand it, I would imagine, would go into your line of work because they get it. But do you find all animals to be the same level of soulful, or it varies?
It varies, but everyone has something to share. Everyone has something to say. Like us, they like to
Right,
be heard.
right,
Um, and I mean, it doesn't matter the species. I say I'm a non-denominational animal communicator because I don't draw the line anywhere.
right.
I've communicated with tigers, um,
Hmm.
bears. It's
Lions,
not
tigers, and
just
lions and bears.
absolutely lions as well. I'm on the outreach advisory board for the Global White Lion Protection Trust in South Africa,
I love
and
that.
they are incredibly unique. So lions too, and it doesn't matter the species. Everyone has thoughts that they
So
want to share.
it's kind of interesting because I think you could compare them to people. I think a lot of women can relate to. You can meet a lot of guys, and some of them are good communicators, and some of them aren't good communicators, and some are soulful, some aren't soulful, some are thick. It just depends.
Yes,
Some are detached, some are warm. So it's energy. It's all energy work.
it absolutely is. And
I,
it's such energy work is such an integral part of what I do.
yes.
Because it's not just the communication piece, but the energy piece is intertwined. We can't separate them.
Of course. Is a psychic connection with animals more common than people think? Because I think a lot of people will look at your workshop and say, how can I talk to animals? I can't do that. And I think they underestimate the amount of people and animals that can vibe and communicate.
Absolutely. I agree 100% with that. Some people just doubt themselves. And
Yeah.
I do workshops. I've worked with other psychics, and done workshops with them, but I do workshops with just the average person who's never ever played around with their intuition, who, has never even tried it. And at the end of one of my 3.5 hour workshops, they've talked to live animals and they are great
Hmm.
at it. They turn out to be rock stars. They astonish themselves. And so it's wonderful to,
Do
to
you
see
take them
people
to a
blossom.
farm, like to practice after their final class? Do they get to go and experience that?
What I
How
do
does
is
that
I
work?
start initially, I do some workshops online and some workshops in person. So
Hmm.
everyone is available to take them. And what we do afterward is practice groups. We'll do practice groups online. And certainly going to a facility, a rescue facility or a sanctuary is a great place to go because then people get to work with animals in different circumstances. Because they too have something to say. A lot of what I do, or part of what I do at least, is working with animals in rescues. Dogs and cats who need to be rehomed or need to be adopted, and communicating with them and doing energy work on them helps them get ready to be adopted. We can steer them away from some bad habits or find out what their likes
Right.
and dislikes are. Do they want to be in a home with children? Do they want to be an only child? So I work with a lot of different groups um, on that scale.
Oh, that's amazing. And I would think that a lot of people who go into animal communication are animal rescuers, are drawn to animals innately, feel that connection. And I think that would be a good place to start for a lot of people. If you're a big animal lover and you were a child who used to try and talk to your cat, or talk to your dog, and you could feel through their eyes what they were trying to communicate to you. That's the sort of experience that animal communicators would have in childhood, to feel that pull to be able to naturally communicate. But I think as we become adults, we start thinking, oh, that's crazy. We can't talk to animals. That's just like the movie Dr. Dolittle. But children think it's possible because they do it every day with their own
Yes,
pets. So
absolutely. We
we stand
forget
in our
we
own
forget
way.
that. We do. We
Yes.
forget that we have those abilities. But we
Yes.
can. there is interspecies communication without a doubt. I do it every day, and
Is it
it's
important to
wonderful.
be Is it important to be in a quiet place when communicating with animals? Sort of like when we connect with spirits. Is it the same process? Like when I bring someone through, I need to be in a quiet place. So if you bring through a pet who's passed, do you need to be in a quiet space? Or is it something that you can sort of do anywhere? Or do you need more of the focus like we do with people that we bring through?
No, I have done it in both circumstances. I mean, most of the time when I'm working through my office, it is quiet, and it
Hmm.
is a quiet, sacred space. But if I'm out in public doing an event, let's say a pet-related event or a wellness-related event, then no, the quiet isn't there. You know, I do events where there are dogs barking at one another, and people talking and yelling, fairs, things like that. So I make my own quiet space, my
With
own sacred
wild
space
animals, do
around
you
me.
ever feel with wild animals, do you ever feel that they're saying I don't want to be around people or stay back where they're more wild and they are less open to the whole communication process?
I've never had an animal not communicate with me. I've never run into that experience. But some are
Uh-huh.
slower than others to open up, and really, I can say that about any species, not just wild animals. But wild animals share some things that are really different. Because, for example, I was working with an owl who was in a rescue, and this was many years ago, and that owl gave me the sensation of flight, and that was just incredible. And the reason
Yeah.
she was in the sanctuary was because she'd been hit by a car and was blind, so it wasn't safe for her to be released.
Hmm.
But she still remembered everything, and obviously relived it and treasured those moments, because just like us, they have their own favorite activities, favorite moments.
So you'd have to be pretty comfortable with animals because even with an owl, they're hunters. And so you've got an animal that will kill another animal because that's their instinct. That's what they do, that's their food source. But you have to be comfortable with the one that's about to be killed. For instance, if you saw through the owl's eyes and memories of going after a baby bunny, I'd be like, no, But
Right,
that's their nature. And it just goes along with the type of animal that they are.
exactly. And that is part of the things that I compartmentalize. I can't blame a shark for being a shark, or a lion for being a lion, or a cat for being a cat, and chasing a smaller creature, and predations take place. That's
Right.
part of the animal world.
Right.
That's the
Yeah.
reality of it. And so
Has
I'm not
animal
going to judge.
communication sorry, your audio keeps it's delayed, so I keep talking over you. So sorry about that
It's
because it seems
okay.
like you're done, but then you're not, and so we'll work with it. Um, has animal communication been used in helping solve crimes?
Yes, I believe it has. I've been on a few interesting calls myself,
Tell us
where
about those.
what I do obviously is not admissible, let's say, in a legal sense, but I can provide
Right.
insight. For example, a woman came to me several years ago, and wanted to know what was happening to her. She was having periods where she was blacking out, and she thought her dog might hold the answers. And so I communicated with the dog, and the dog showed me what was happening. She showed me that this woman asleep um, on a couch, and there were people breaking into her house, and they were somehow drugging her. Um, and when she would wake up, things would be moved around, things were missing, and she didn't know who was doing it. And so when I described the persons to her, she
Hmm.
recognized who they were. So
Wow.
something like that isn't that useful, but yet it's there. The information is out there. Another
Well,
time I worked with a horse.
that could actually tell her to set up a video camera and record it because that's admissible in court.
Exactly. I was able to show her where they were getting in and how, and what they were doing that
Mm-hmm.
was impacting her and causing her to lose consciousness. In a different instance, I had worked with a horse who had been hurt when the barn that he was living in was broken into, and his owner and the barn owner were interested in knowing who had done it, if I could get information from the horse. And I was able to see who it was and describe the person. And in that instance, the sheriff was on the call, and he recognized that they'd already interviewed that person. So, he knew he was on the right track
I love
with
that.
the person he suspected.
Yeah, that's great. I know there was one murder case where it was a not a I don't think it was a macaw. I think it was a parrot that witnessed a murder, and it would repeat what it saw to law enforcement, and law enforcement realized that the bird had witnessed this murder, and it was giving them very specific details,
Right.
and it had a very volatile reaction to this one person in particular. And the person that was the victim said the name of the killer, which the bird kept repeating. So, as strange as it is, you know, they have been looked at as information sources in murders before. I love what you've done, though. A lot of
Yes.
people wouldn't even think about reaching out to someone like you for that. That's amazing.
But it happens. I mean, as I said, certainly not legally useful, but at least it can confirm someone's suspicions or not.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So you communicate with living and deceased animals, is that right?
I do. I work with animals who are lost, animals who are, I guess I would call them medical mysteries, in that conventional vet medicine may not have been able to pinpoint the cause. Very often, we're looking at symptoms versus cause. So I can help. I'm no diagnostician. I have no medical training at all. I was a high school English teacher for 31 years. But because I feel things in my body, I can point to a specific area and suggest a vet look there, which may or may not be the place where he's looking or she is looking to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
I work with animals who are in the process of crossing the bridge, animals in transition, and I will walk them across when the proper time comes. I have a lot of people who come to me and ask me, is it time? I can't tell you it's the time, but I can tell you how your pet is feeling and what is pain, what their pain
Mm-hmm.
level is, how much pain are they in, because very often we awfulize that kind of information. And I know as a good dog mom, I've done it myself. I hear pain and think, oh good God, it's got teeth and claws and my dog is in agony. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, it may not be the case. um, and then when animals do cross, I work with them on the other side of the bridge because very often people need closure. They have
Mm-hmm.
unanswered questions, uh, and so it's hard to get the answers um, from more conventional means. So someone
I
like
find
me
that
can come in handy.
I find that a lot of people feel inordinate, like an insane amount of guilt over putting an animal to sleep, even if they had cancer, or they were really sick. And I've heard animals in a few situations such as that have actually said, no, thank you. I know that was
Hmm.
hard for you to do. It was a hard decision to make. I know it wasn't easy. And thank you because I was in a lot of pain. And so they actually are grateful to be released. I just wanted to say that for all the people watching so that they know that when you do that for an animal who's suffering, you're actually doing the harder thing for you um, in letting them go. And they recognize that as love because they know it's a self sacrifice in letting them go.
They absolutely do. They understand that because,
Yeah.
when I work with an animal who's already crossed the bridge, someone will ask me that question. Was it the
Mm-hmm.
right time? You know, because I can say, well, this is what he or she was feeling, and
Mm-hmm.
how not just physically, but emotionally, mentally. because
Hmm.
being ill can affect their psyches, their emotional well-being. So I can offer
Yeah.
that sort of insight too, and because I can give their pets that power to speak, I can let them know, what it's like. Um, and also I can let them know what sort of signs, if you will, that the pet might be offering from the other side, things that they need to look out for.
Hmm.
Because very often, we want to know, are they okay on the other
Hmm.
side? You know,
Right.
did he or she make it across safely?
Hmm.
And so, sometimes I will hear what that sign would be, whether it's listen for something that sounds like music, or in my case, my dog that passed away, it was ladybugs that he would send me. Um,
Hmm.
and so I will talk with my clients, about how to recognize those signs, those little calling cards that our pets send to us, just to say that they're thinking of us and they love us, because they're still with us. You know,
Yeah.
um, it's funny. This dog, I worked with her. She passed a short time ago, and I told her
Oh.
parents to be on the lookout. It was very sudden, and they were very distressed about it. Um, yeah, it's a good one. Um, and and now I have big head syndrome.
You're good.
Um, okay. So anyway, when she crossed, they were very distraught about it because it was so sudden. They didn't know what had happened. And so I worked with the two of them right after she crossed. And
Hmm.
one of the things she told me was she would send them flowers. And so I particularly saw pink flowers. And it was very crazy because the mom sent me that picture the next morning, when her husband went out to walk by himself. One of the places
Hmm.
where he would walk with the dog, he found that pink flower. And so she really did
Can you
come
hold it
through
up
for
higher?
them.
Can you hold it up higher
Absolutely.
because your camera angle's cutting off sort of where the picture is.
Right. So that's Summer. And that
So
was
so
her
cute.
pink flower that she
Oh.
sent to her parents. And she continued to send them other signs as well. I mean, this is Harry. And Harry's mom was so concerned
Oh.
that he had made it across safely. And so I remember her calling me after he'd crossed, and she said to me, how am I going to know? And I said, well, just ask him for something, some sort of
Yeah.
sign. And it's so crazy. She said, okay, I'll be specific. And she did. She asked for something. And a couple of days later, her screensaver on her phone inexplicably changed to his
Oh.
picture, to an old picture of him. And I said to
Oh.
her, do you think? You think
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
working? He's hearing you, he's listening to you, and he's sending
It's
you signs.
That's so funny because people will do the same thing. And I think it's funny that here, this amazing looking cat, by the way, that looks like it is distinguished and has a mustache. He
Right?
looks like a real gent.
He's
Um,
gorgeous.
will send a sign that a human would actually send. It's like they're that intelligent emotionally and knowing how to communicate that they're there. I found after my cat Sinatra passed, I'd feel him jump on the corner of the bed and it would depress. You'd feel the
Yes,
depression where he would jump. So when people talk about signs, my cat made it really obvious that he was there. And I loved it because I knew it was him because he was an 18-pound cat. So it was unmistakable that it was Sinatra. But
it's definitely him.
it made me feel better. And I still see him and Daisy where I think they've walked into my room and then I look up again and there's nothing there. But I know that that was them. So for all the people out there who have lost an animal and they think their mind's playing tricks on you, it's
It's
not.
not.
It's not. You're actually seeing your pet and they're letting you know that they're still around you because you're part of their heaven. And it's why the dead will remain with us because their heaven isn't complete without us. And I really love that.
It's true. It's so
Yeah.
true. I will always say to people, don't doubt yourself. Don't
Yeah.
think you're imagining it. It's there,
Yeah.
it's real. It's just accepting it.
Yeah. Well, tell us about your upcoming workshop. What kind of people are they? People of all walks of life, different countries, different states? Like, who signs up for your class?
Absolutely, people around the world sign up for my different classes. I offer classes in a lot of different topics, things that impact my work, like intuition or pendulum dowsing, which I use for lost pets when I map
Mm-hmm.
dows. Uh, But I also offer two of the more popular ones are Animal Communication 101, the basics, where
Mm-hmm.
people get to connect with pets who are still alive and with us, and energy work for pet parents and caregivers, which is a popular one, especially at this time of year because of 4th
Mm-hmm.
of July coming up. So many pets are reactive to fireworks, and
Right.
so we get them ready for
Yeah.
that. And it helps. The energy work will help them cope with the situation.
So I
Um,
was wondering if you do this because I do this with my students and I find it helps them a lot. So they're on Discord and they've got like the Zoom laboratory that they practice in because they're all in different countries and states.
right.
Do you have your students practice once they get comfortable with that, trusting their instincts, practice pulling impressions off of each other of that person's animals that have passed?
That's part of the very first workshop that I do. I have them work with each other's animals through a picture, which is how I work most of the
I
time.
love that. Yeah.
And so that's part of our practice. And we have to become confident. We have to get
Yes.
rid of the voice saying to us, it's not right, you're not hearing that, you're making this up, and
Yeah.
understanding that it is real. I will teach people basic psychometry using an
Mm-hmm.
object, and or I'll say to them, I'll have them practice sometimes on humans, give them a picture of a human being and say, just tell me that person's story. And they know it. Innately, they know it. It's just a question again of getting that doubtful voice away.
Right. Yeah, we stand in our own way. That's one of the biggest hurdles I find for empaths is learning to trust your inner voice and blocking out all the outside voices that come as doubt in your mind, and allowing that inner voice to take center stage in your trust. And I did that a long time ago. I trust the dead a hell of a lot more than I trust the living.
Yes.
With your students, do you also have them bring in pictures of missing animals to practice pulling impressions off of where they sense they are?
Well, I will have them practice on cases that I've already solved. And so we
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
work
yeah. That's great.
because many of the times it's a life or death situation. And so
Right.
we don't want to practice in that kind of a situation.
Uh,
But as they advance, I have them work with me in tandem on different
mm-hmm.
cases and see what their impressions are. And again, train them with things like map dowsing,
Mm-hmm.
because that is something that is extremely, extremely handy for
And they need
when
to
I'm working with a
practice.
lost
They
pet.
they need to practice because they need to see what their niche is because sometimes they'll be really strong at communicating with a cat who's passed, which is mediumship, but
Right,
not great at a living pet who's lost.
exactly.
You'll see a difference.
And they may find out this is something I don't want to do,
Right. Right.
because lost pets particularly is very intense because
Mm-hmm.
I'm dealing with the family and I'm dealing with the pet as well.
Right.
So lots of times I find myself doing energy work on a whole family,
I
because
have my
we need
I
to
have
calm them down.
I have my students practice with photographs. They each bring in photographs, and the other ones have to determine whether or not the person in that picture is alive or dead. Now, we
Yes,
know the person that brought it in knows, but it helps them to practice to see because some people are really good at being able to tell from a photograph, which helps in missing cases if somebody is still alive or if you're just looking for a body recovery. So
exactly.
there's so many different levels of psychic work for
Hmm.
people learning to practice, and practice, practice, practice is the only way anybody will become great at their craft or what they do psychically. They can't just pay for a class and not participate and practice. It's like a Peloton. You can't buy one and get a svelte body while looking at the Peloton and you're eating donuts, watching TV.
That's
You got to
right.
do the work. So I like to be very clear on that because a lot of people just want it to come. They want instant gratification, and they've got to do the work to increase that spiritual muscle inside of them, the strength that they wield. Otherwise, it just sits dormant and aggravates you when you don't use your abilities.
It's true. And I have my
Yeah.
students practice both with me and without me. And, before I would be comfortable saying to somebody, hey, Fly, you're an animal communicator. You need to do hundreds of hours of practice so that you know without a doubt what you're hearing is correct,
Right.
what you're hearing is accurate, which is why we start with animals that they don't know, but that there is a human being around who can say, yes, you're right. It's that food that they don't like, or that toy that they think is wonderful, and this is
Mm-hmm.
their favorite person, and so on and so forth. The validation is really, really important.
So where can people find you?
My website is zenzu, zenzuac.com, and I also have email. It's mary@zenzuac.com. And I am around for anyone who might be more interested in pursuing work in animal communication, or if people have questions about their own animals, if they need my assistance in any
Book a
capacity, I'm
reading.
there for
Yeah.
them as well.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I'm always
Great.
available.
So is your website where they can sign up for your workshop?
Yes, they can request my workshop
Okay.
through the website, through me via email. And so,
Okay.
my websites are published there too.
Okay, great. Well, Mary, thank you. Come back anytime. Thanks to Mary Albanese for sharing her special gift with us today. And thank you to my listeners for tuning in. You can catch me next Tuesday for a fresh episode of The Dead Life. I'm Allison DuBois. This is The Dead Life. And to all of my believers out there, don't stop believing.